What's up, you guys? Tristan Griffin with Hill of Beans Fundraising here. I am the owner and lead fundraising consultant for Hill of Beans Fundraising, and I'm going to walk you through today a presentation called How Are We Going to Raise All of This Money? The Basics of Grassroots Person-to-Person Fundraising. This presentation is for people who are trying to raise any sum of money, whether it be $500 or $5 million, and they're just trying to wrap their minds around the very basic, practical process of going about raising that money. And so I'll walk you through it real quick. It's only going to take about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope you gained something from this presentation. If you do, shoot me a note, let me know, or if you have any additional questions, let me know, and let's discuss what you got going on. First of all, a little bit about me. There I am in the picture on the far left, and my wife Melanie is right there in front of me. I've got my oldest daughter Scout, who's on the far left there, and then my twins Tilly, who's right to Scout's right, and then Bingham, who's all the way to the right in that picture, and our youngest daughter Dawsey. So we have 4 kids, 6 and under right now. We've got our hands full. We've got a lot going on, but things are going really well. We're enjoying our time with our kiddos, enjoying our time in the nonprofit world, trying to execute the missions that we've been called to execute. In my professional journey, I've spent the last 8 years in nonprofit work. I worked nearly 7.5 years for an organization called Fellowship of Christian Athletes. This is a large global nonprofit. And then in 2023, my wife and I decided to go out on our own and launch our own nonprofit called Farming with Friends that employs people with disabilities on a regenerative farm in Hinckley, Ohio. So I've been in the nonprofit world for the last 8 years, and in those roles, I have fundraised for the entirety of my livelihood, my benefits, and my costs of executing my mission. So whatever that might look like. I believe in year one, that number was about $75,000, and in every year since then, it's been at least 6 figures. And within the past 9 months or so since launching Farming with Friends, we've raised right around $325,000. So we continue to progress over the 8 years, and we've raised well over $1 million to this point in our careers and in our journeys. Now let's get into the presentation. Why grassroots person-to-person fundraising? In my mind, I would delineate or say that this is different from fundraising through grant-making organizations or through churches or through the government, whatever that might look like. So ultimately, why I would choose grassroots person-to-person fundraising, or at least a basic understanding of that, over those is because I find grassroots person-to-person fundraising to be more efficient. And what I mean by that is more juice, less squeeze, right? All of the effort that I often have to put into writing a grant proposal or jumping through the red tape or the hoops related to the government or the church or whatever organization that I'm trying to work with. A lot of times it is a more efficient use of my time to go and connect with people, with individuals, and ask them to get behind what we're doing. The second piece of this is that it's more elemental in nature, right? At the end of the day, it's just people helping people. I'm sitting across from other individuals, hearing their stories, sharing mine, sharing what I'm passionate about, and then asking them to help. And there's something that's just very simple yet profound in that, and I think that is what makes it even more appealing to me. It's more relational, right? At this point in our journey, we've spent 8 years walking alongside of people that have invested in our mission, that we've asked for help, that have asked us for help, and we've been living life on a deeper level with them than we have with some of the other folks in our lives, where things tend to stay on the surface because we're not willing to ask those difficult questions or to jump in and help one another on such a deep level. And then lastly, in many ways, it's more reliable, right? For a couple of reasons. One would just be because of the depth of relationship, right? So once I get to know somebody deeply, I connect with them regularly, at the end of the day, we're going to have a relationship that oftentimes supersedes ups and downs in the economy or changes or transitions or whatever it might be. And that brings me to the second reason I find it more reliable, is that whenever you're going with grant-making organizations or churches or the government or whoever it might be who's sending you funding, a lot of times there's changes in regimes, there's changes in leadership, there's changes in opinions, there's all sorts of different things that can happen within those organizations. And next thing you know, you turn around and your funding is gone. And so I like to really establish a solid base of individuals who are supporting my mission for these reasons. Next is the most important question a fundraiser will ever answer, and that is, what is your mission? At the end of the day, we all have something that cries out to our heart. We all have a passion. We all have something that we feel called toward, right? And for the fundraiser, it is extremely important to become crystal clear in answering this question: what is your mission? Because at the end of the day, you will be far more successful at raising whatever amount of money that you plan to raise if you are incredibly passionate and feel absolutely called to execute upon the mission that you're raising funds for. And on the flip side of that, if you're not incredibly passionate about, or you don't feel called, or you're a little bit on the fence about a particular mission, there's a really good likelihood that you're not going to be as successful in your fundraising efforts. So I think it's really, really important for all fundraisers to slow down enough, to dig into their heart enough, and understand, what is my mission, right? What is my heart's cry? What is that thing that really compels me, that I feel like I should contribute to this world? For me, it is employment of people with disabilities on a regenerative farm, right? And my mission has changed over the years. But at the end of the day, that is what I feel my loudest heart's cry is at this moment. And that is why we are successful in raising the funds that we're successful raising. And so I would just encourage you to figure out, what is your mission, right? Where does your passion align with your skill set? And how can you run all that forward into a clear, compelling mission? Now into the practicalities of raising funds, right? So at the end of the day, you know your mission. You also know the number 3 up there, and the star symbolizes the goal for your mission, right? What is the number one thing that you're trying to accomplish repeatedly over time? And you've got to get that mission wagon up to the top of that mountain. And if you're going to do that, there's a phrase that I use all the time with my board or with others: you've got to feed the horse. You've got to feed the horse, right? The horse is the engine that makes all of this go. And so if your mission wagon is super heavy, you've got a ton of programs, you got a lot of things going on, you've got to go meet with this board member, with that person, with this staff member, and so on and so forth. And you're so bogged down with mission that you're not feeding the horse, you will always struggle to get to the top of the mountain. So for most organizations, it's really, really important that you focus in on feeding the horse, right? They say no money, no mission. At the end of the day, that is just the reality of the world that we live in. You've got to feed the horse. So what does it look like to feed the horse? I think there's 3 incredibly practical steps, 3 words that I want to stick in your mind right now. And you've got to do these things repetitively over time. Those 3 things are connect, share, and ask. The really good fundraiser becomes really good at doing these 3 things repeatedly over and over and over. So with respect to connect, there's a few questions I want to answer for you. The first question would be, with whom should you connect, right? As you're looking into all the people that you could potentially connect with in your world to talk to about your mission, who should you start to target? My first answer would be everyone. I know that sounds a bit broad and crazy at first, but in all reality, you never know who's going to resonate with your mission. I know in my own fundraising journey, I talked to people that I was dead certain my mission would resonate with, and it didn't. And then I talked to people that I was dead certain that my mission was not going to resonate with, and it did, right? So everyone's a great answer to this, but if you want to become a little bit more specific, I think it's really important that you start to identify people who share some level of core belief with you, with your organization, whatever that might be. Right? When I worked for Fellowship of Christian Athlete, it was fairly important that our donors were Christian, that they had some really deep belief in the power of sports and those types of things, right? The second piece, and it's related to core beliefs, is chemistry. And so they've got to align in some way with your mission, right? So my current mission right now is to employ people with disabilities on a regenerative farm. And so it would make a lot of sense for me to connect with people who have a passion for people with disabilities, right? parents of people with disabilities, or people who really are passionate about the environment and doing things through farming practices that restore health to the environment, right? So there's got to be some alignment with chemistry there. And then lastly, capacity. And capacity can be a tricky one, right? It's really hard for me to say what someone's capacity is when I'm looking at their life from the outside. And by capacity, I mean the ability to give, whether that be time, talent, or treasure. There's a lot of times where I'm meeting with folks again, and I believe this person has all the resources, all the time in the world, and turns out that they don't, and vice versa, right? So we got to be really careful with that. But still, it's a great tool to use as we evaluate those people with whom we're trying to connect to share our mission. Secondly, next question: how many meetings do I need to have per year? And a good answer to that is it depends. It depends on the amount of money that you're trying to raise, right? If I'm trying to raise $1,000, I probably don't need a ton of meetings throughout one year, right? But if you're trying to raise a significant sum of money, right, and you're trying to base your livelihood off of the funds that you raise, at the end of the day, I think it's really important that you're shooting for somewhere in the ballpark to 150 to 250 meetings per year. And that works its way out to about 2 to 4 meetings per week. Of course, you can have some weeks that are more, some weeks that are less, but at the end of the day, fundraising is in many ways a numbers game. You must connect with a lot of different people, find the people with whom your mission resonates, and run alongside of those people and invite them into what you're trying to do. But you can't find them unless you connect with a lot of people. Next, just the real practicalities of connect, right? If I see fundraising break down, it's in two different spaces. The first is in this connect realm where the relationship becomes transactional, right? And we start to see people as dollar signs as opposed to human beings sitting across from us. And so it's really, really important that we care deeply about the person with whom we're connecting. We must care about them more than the money that they could donate to our organization. And in doing that, we want to get to know the details of his or her life, family, and business. We don't want to see that person as a dollar sign. And the questions you're answering for the other person at this point, as they look at you, they're thinking, is this person genuine? And does this person care about me? Right? People give to people they know, like, and trust. By initiating, whether it be breakfast, lunch, coffee, dinner, whatever it might be, you're giving them an opportunity to know and like you. And you're developing trust when you show them that you care about them far more than you care about your mission or the money that they could donate toward your mission. The next piece is share. So you've allowed them to share their life, their business, their family, whatever it might be. Now it's your turn. You've got to become really good at sharing the details of your life, your family, your business. Also, in doing this, I want to encourage you to be vulnerable and transparent and authentic, right? People connect with those things. Show them your heart. Show them that burning fire inside of you. Don't be afraid to do that. One caveat here is don't monopolize conversation, right? I tend to use the sort of the 75-25 rule, right? 75% of the time they're talking, 25% of the time I'm talking. And that's just a rough rule. If it's 50-50, that's okay as well. What I really want to keep from is me being 75 and them being 25, right? Conversation is a two-way street. You've got to take an interest in the other person, their thoughts, their opinions, and their lives. And the questions you're answering at this point are, is this a quality mission and organization? And is this person the right person to carry out this mission, right? You've jumped past the first hurdles in Connect of, are you a genuine person and do you care about them? Now they're asking, is this a quality mission, right? Does it resonate with me? Do I like what they're trying to accomplish? And then second, is this person the right person to carry out this mission, right? There's a lot of organizations out there with great missions, and a lot of times the people leading those organizations may or may not be the right person to carry out that mission, right? So you're answering those two questions during this process. This slide right here is incredibly important for the fundraiser, and I'd love for it to stick in your mind as you move forward as well. So there are three potential ways to share your mission with a potential donor. And each one is more effective than the last, okay? So on the far left, you've got media to face, okay? And what I mean by that is you can share your mission through email, phone call, one pager, social media, any of the medias, okay? And those are not bad ways to share your mission. They're just less effective than the next two. I will say a well crafted email, a well crafted one pager can go a long way toward opening ears and hearts toward your mission. The second, right there in the middle, is me to face, right? And what I mean by that is just person to person, sitting across from them at coffee, at lunch, at dinner, at breakfast, whatever it might be, at their office, and just sharing the mission with them person to person. This is a more effective way to share your mission than media to face, but a less effective way to share your mission than mission to face. And that brings me to mission to face, right? And what I mean by that is giving people an opportunity to encounter your mission by being right in the middle of it, right? We want them to see the front lines of what you're accomplishing. And for me, being on a farm, right, that is an opportunity or a time when I invite a potential donor to the farm to see people with disabilities working and farming in a regenerative manner, right? All of my mission is happening right there in one spot. And that is the best opportunity I have at showing that person what we do and finding out whether or not it resonates with them. And then, of course, at the bottom of this bridge going from connect to ask is the river of lost opportunity, right? If you're not sharing, if you're not showing them the mission, there's no opportunity to go from connect to ask. And that brings me to the final of the three steps, which is ask. Again, I've said if I see fundraising breakdown, it's in two spots. The first is in the connect space where the relationship becomes transactional. The second is in the ask space, right? People become good at connecting and sharing, but they're too afraid to ask. Don't skip the ask, right? And when you ask, be specific if possible. Tell them the number that you need. Again, be transparent, be vulnerable, be authentic. Let them know. If you're in a situation where it's like, we've got to raise $25,000 by the end of this year or we're going to shut the doors, tell them that. Don't be afraid to tell them that. Don't lie to them. Don't tell them everything's good. Just let them know the reality of what you've got going on. And lastly, in this space, ask and then be quiet, right? Ask and then be quiet. I know in my early fundraising days, it was so tempting for me to make the ask and then in the discomfort of the ask to just keep talking and keep nonsense, just saying things that don't really matter because I'm so uncomfortable with the ask. I want to encourage you, ask and then be quiet, right? Hey, Joe, we're trying to raise $500,000 by the end of August, and I want to encourage you to consider donating to what we're trying to accomplish. Be quiet, right? Let Joe speak. Give him an opportunity. Questions you're answering here are, what are the organization's needs, right? So at the end of the day, Joe's just trying to figure out, hey, what are your needs? And then how can I help? How can I be of service? Also, in your ask, don't be afraid to frame it this way. I often frame it in a way that gives people an out. And I've got no problem with doing this, right? The phraseology at the bottom here, I know this might not make sense for you right now, and that's absolutely okay. Don't be afraid to put that at the beginning of your ask. There's a million different reasons why a person could not give to your organization. And it is absolutely okay if they say no, and I want them to know that. However, I'm still going to ask. And a few more practical things as we wrap up here. Follow up. It's not a part of connect, share, ask, the big three, right? But it's a really important fourth. Follow up. Donating to your organization is not the top priority of the people that you've asked. People are busy and they've got a lot going on. Be good at your job, right? Your job is to raise money. Be good at it. Follow up with people. Don't give up too easily. But also on the flip side, don't bother them too much, right? Know when to let them off the hook. I will almost always give at least an email and a phone call. If they don't respond to that, I'll probably shoot them another email in a couple of weeks. If they don't respond to that, I'll shoot them another in a month. They don't respond to that, maybe one more in a month, before I finally get to the point to where it's like, okay, I've done everything I possibly can. This is not a matter of them being busy, most likely. At this point, they're probably just ignoring me, and that's okay, right? But I'm certainly not going to let them get away with just, hey, I'll follow up, and then I never follow up. The questions you're answering here, and this is still very important, they're wondering, is this person organized, right? Quality businessmen and women know what it means to follow up. They want to see people who got that fight, who got that fire, who will say, hey, I'm following up to see if you're going to make this decision, right? So you're answering, will he or she follow through? Does this person care enough about the mission to make sure nothing falls through the cracks? Really, really important that you're great at following up. And lastly, we'll wrap up with a couple of what I call flat tires. These are just issues that span the gap on everything that you do in your fundraising space or in your nonprofit space or whatever, that if not done well, will constantly keep you from raising as much money as you possibly could. And they're all extremely simple, but they need to be done the high majority of the time. Number one is just be personal, right? Care about people deeply. Don't do everything you can to stay out of the transactional mindset. The second is be punctual. I can guarantee you, if somebody's asking me for money and they show up 5 minutes late to that meeting, if I still give, I'm going to give them less than I would have given them otherwise. Punctuality is important. Respect the time of the person at your meeting. Be professional. This doesn't mean that you got to go to every meeting in a tuxedo, right? But at the end of the day, clean yourself up, look the part, look as if you are a person that I would like to give money to, right? Be polite. These are the little things. Say please, say thank you, open the door. Your manners, right? All of those little things that your grandma was all about, do those things. Next, be a great communicator. Again, so Mark Twain once said, sorry I wrote you a long letter. I didn't have time to write you a short one. And there's incredible power in that statement, right? You've got to be good, so good at connecting, sharing, and asking that you can do it in a clear and compelling and meaningful way in a 5-10 minute window, right? Respect that person's time, become really good at communicating your message. Next is be authentic and truthful. At the end of the day, you've got to be authentic and truthful. Nothing will, number one, make you more miserable. Number two, shut down your fundraising efforts like being inauthentic and fake. People can sniff out fake all day long, and they will give more to authentic and truthful people over time than fake people. Lastly, be passionate, right? Everybody's passionate about something. If Jimmy can be so passionate about the Cleveland Browns that he can talk to me about it for 15 minutes, then certainly we can clear space for me to be passionate about employing people with disabilities on a regenerative farm, right? Share your passion. We've all got our passions. Don't let the fear and nervousness of what you've got going on suck the passion out of you. Be passionate. Passion can be contagious when authentic. My final encouragement is just a quote taken from a book I wrote called Hill of Beans, A Fable for Kingdom Fundraisers. It says, as someone who has taken the leap of faith and decided to fundraise, you've been elevated, or perhaps lowered, depending upon how you look at it, to a position with much responsibility. God hasn't put you in this position for giggles. He has you here for a reason. You have been called to a position with a lot of responsibility. We live in a world where money is the great intoxicator, right? And you stand in the gap between those who have a lot and those who don't. And you're asking each of them to hold their money, hold their possessions loosely for the benefit and the greater good of everyone around them. It's an incredible responsibility. God hasn't put you there for no reason, right? And he wants you to struggle with it and be challenged by it, certainly. But at the end of the day, he wants you to live free in it. He wants you to live joyful in it. He wants you to share that passion and to raise those funds and to accomplish that mission. I want to encourage you in that. If you need additional resources, certainly feel free to email me at tristan@hobfundraising.com or get the book Hill of Beans, A Fable for Kingdom Fundraisers, right? Read through the book. If you have any questions, reach out. Let's talk. I'd love to help you in this space. Thank you, guys.